Would you believe it if I told you that the Laval Rocket are now in a playoff position? What? Let's talk about how they got there last week. Welcome back to the show. We have a lot of ground to cover today because there were 3 games on the slate for the Laval Rocket last week. If you recall, they spent the previous weekend on the road in Utica for the first two of 3 consecutive games against the Comets, which is the New Jersey Devils AHL affiliate, and they beat the Comets 2 times on the road. So the Comets then finished out this 3-game kind of mini series on Wednesday at Place Belle in Laval. And unfortunately, the Laval Rocket had their win streak snapped there because they did, although got an extra point by going to overtime, they did ultimately lose this game 6-5 in overtime, 11 total goals on the night. So needless to say, it was a bit of an offensive back and forth. Probably the highlight on this night was Joshua Waugh coming up with a 3-point night. He had 2 goals and an assist and was +3 on the night. But still, they were able to garner a point. So Utica only really gained 1 point of ground on them in the standings. Then they welcomed the Manitoba Moose into the building for Friday night and Saturday afternoon. If you recall, way back in early November, they went on a 2-game road trip to visit Manitoba, and that had kicked off, that was one of their first back-to-back wins of the season. They beat Manitoba both times in the Moose's barn. Well, they turned around and they did the same thing again in their own barn, handily defeating the Manitoba Moose over the weekend. Friday night winning it 5-2, Saturday afternoon 4-1, and absolutely looking like this suddenly very competitive AHL team. And we remember they went to a 9-game losing streak at one point in the beginning of the season. They were firmly in the basement in the AHL. And in a moment, we're going to talk about where they're at in the standings right now. So it's been quite a turnaround for the Laval Rocket here to kick things off in 2024. That 3rd game against Manitoba, the Saturday afternoon matinee, was Philip Cederquist's debut with the Laval Rocket. If you missed that news, the Montreal Canadiens traded with the Buffalo Sabres for Philip Cederquist earlier in the week, kind of midweek last week. He was playing for the Rochester Americans. The Canadiens traded him for future considerations. So basically, I guess they felt they needed a little bit of boosting on the forward lines. And so brought him in. He's 23. He was a 5th-round pick for Buffalo back in 2019. Last season, with 55 games played with Rochester, he had 4 goals and 11 assists. Saturday's debut with the Rocket was his 20th AHL game that he's played so far this season. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists on the season, so he hasn't quite found his stride with that production yet, but it'll be interesting to see how he's deployed in Laval. He played on the 3rd line on Saturday in his debut. There was a bit of movement because Laval got struck by the injury bug last week. Gabriel Bourque, the captain, was out again. He was listed as indefinite, actually, but he turned around and ended up coming back to play over the weekend, so it ended up not being very long. However, Nathan Legare, Sean Farrell, and Brady Keeper all out for an extended period of time. Obviously, the most kind of critical news there is the prospect, Sean Farrell. He's going to be out probably 7 to 8 weeks, and that's a bit of a disappointment for a young prospect in his rookie year. He's had a good season so far, so hopefully he's able to recover rather quickly, get back into playing action, and hopefully he can pick things up right where he left them off. There was also some recalls and send-downs. Emil Heineman was returned by the Montreal Canadiens. He played on Friday and Saturday night. We're going to talk about him a little bit more in a moment. And Joshua Waugh, I just mentioned that he had that 3-point night on Wednesday. Well, he was not available for JFL's Friday and Saturday games because he was experiencing his first NHL recall to the Montreal Canadiens, and he was called up, made his NHL debut. He had about 15 minutes of ice time in his first game second game, actually the one that he just played on Monday night, definitely we saw that ice time cut in half at least. So we'll see how long Joshua Waugh stays up, but congratulations to him on getting his NHL debut and his first call-up. But really, as I said at the top of the show, Laval has kind of turned some sort of corner. The arrival of Arbor Jackeye seems to have stabilized the back end a little bit. It certainly has gone a long way to helping Logan Mailloux, and the two of them make a terrific top pairing duo of defensemen. In addition, behind them in between the pipes, Jakub Dobeš finally has kind of a steady tandem teammate with Casimir Kaskisuo coming in. So the defensive side of things for Laval has seemed to kind of firm up a bit, and maybe that was what they needed, was a bit of confidence defensively in order to be successful. We'll see if they can continue this run that they're on, but right now their record is now 15-14-4-2. That puts them, in the last 10 games, they're 8-1-1. In their last 10 games. I mean, they're on a terrific run right now, and we definitely did not anticipate being able to say that a month ago, much less 2 or 3 months ago. That has put them into fourth place in the division. And fifth place is the qualifier for playoffs. So they are solidly in fourth position, just 4 points back from third place, which is the Belleville Senators. Now, when it comes to winning percentage, points percentage, they are actually still out of the playoff picture. They're in sixth place when you look at winning percentage and points percentage. Why is that important? Well, because if the teams behind them who have games in hand, continue to perform well, then they could find themselves out of that playoff picture. But for right now, let's keep it good news. They are in a playoff position. That has bumped them up to 11th in the Eastern Conference and 19th overall in the AHL. So Laval has certainly had some reasons to celebrate recently. Fans are loving it, and we'll see how far that can continue. In terms of the prospect breakdown, there were 3 who really stood out to me this week. I'm going to start with someone who went a little under the radar, and that was Jared Davidson. You'll remember in recent weeks, I've mentioned Jared Davidson as one of my good pieces of the prospect breakdown. He's starting to kind of settle in and find his game at the AHL level, and he actually had 3 assists last week. So while he wasn't a big celly for any big goals or anything like that, he was playing a good defensive game, and he had 3 helpers last week as well. So I'm happy to see that continue. Joshua Waugh, as I said, 2 goals and an assist, and then getting his first recall. That's something to be happy about in terms of the prospects and their development. And Emil Heineman, he got sent back down from the NHL, played Friday night and Saturday, and in those 2 games came up with 2 goals and an assist, 9 shots on goal, and one of those goals was a power play goal. So a very strong return to Laval for Emil Heineman. Would love to see him continue that progression. And in fact, Emil Heineman is my standout star for this week, simply because he has become a very reliable, mature forward. He's a great recall option. Would love to see him get a little bit more NHL time to see how far his development has come in terms of transitioning to the NHL game. Emil Heineman, definitely my standout star for this week. So for the Laval look ahead, what is on tap for this week? Can they keep these winning ways going? Well, they're going to have a little bit of a challenge this week. They do have a full week of practice. They don't play again until Friday. They play Friday and Saturday. It's a home and home series against the Belleville Senators. You remember, I just mentioned a moment ago, it is the same Belleville Senators who are sitting just ahead of them in the North Division in third place, 4 points ahead of Laval. That means this weekend is going to be very important for Belleville. They're going to want to retain that 4-point gap to Laval, and it's going to be very important for Laval because they want to make up all of those 4 points and maybe tie Belleville by the end of the weekend. So both of these teams have a lot of motivation to perform well. They start the home and home Friday night at home at Place Belle, and then go to Belleville on Saturday night at 7 o'clock. We'll see what happens with the home game on Friday, but we know not even just from this season, but every season, that Laval, for whatever reason, struggles to win when they play in Belleville at CAA Arena. Can they kind of break that pattern this weekend with so much at stake for them? We'll see if Mad Sogard, Belleville's star goaltender, gets returned from Ottawa or not. Currently, he is up on recall. But with two teams who have won 8 of their last 10 games, there's a lot at stake, and I guarantee this is going to be exciting hockey. You can catch all of our coverage, our full game recaps of both of these games online, because we cover the Montreal Canadiens and the Laval Rocket for the hockey news. So you can find us at thn.com/Montreal. That's where we have every Laval Rocket game recap. Be sure to bookmark it and check it out. And don't forget, if you're enjoying all of our coverage here on YouTube and all of the content that we're bringing you each and every week, don't forget to tap that subscribe button, hit the like button, and tap the notification bell. Hey, speaking of prospects and their development, if you missed it earlier this week on YouTube, our latest episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast dropped, and I was happy to be the guest host with Rick Stevens for segment 2 of that episode, because we had a very special guest on the show, none other than draft analyst, prospect expert Russ Cohen. You might know him from at Sportsology on Twitter. He joined Rick and I for a great interview talking about the 4 Habs prospects who appeared in the World Juniors and how they performed. And also, Russ gave, with his first version of his draft rankings for 2024 out, he gave us some ideas on who the Habs might target in the first round at the draft this year. And you might be surprised at what he had to say. If you missed that episode, well, guess what? You're in luck. You can watch that video right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.